Okay, so before I get into this video, I just need to go ahead and say we really need more Sean Hemrick. The reason I say that is just this man's facial expressions are 10 out of 10. Now, the real reason I'm making this video is that I'm underneath the impression that there's a new mode coming to Injustice 2 that NetherRealm has never done before. I've actually been speculating about this for quite some time because there's a very long period of time between now and release. It's roughly like 2 months at the time of me recording this. And there's very little characters that they can actually reveal from here on out, but I don't think the hype train is dying anytime soon. NetherRealm has been pretty good at keeping us excited about the game despite the leaked list and us already knowing pretty much every single character that's going to be in the game, obviously other than DLC, and they're doing a very good job of keeping us interested. But they're almost out of character. I feel like there's a lot more content in the game that they can talk about. For example, gear I think is going to be a big discussion point moving forward. Obviously they've talked about doing an entire stream dedicated to talking about the gear system and things we don't know about it yet. But something else I think they're going to want to talk about is an entirely new game mode, which I personally think will focus on the RPG aspect that Injustice 2 is bringing to the table that you don't see in other fighting games. As a whole, Injustice 2 is kind of built like an RPG when we look at the gear system. I have an entirely different video on that if you want to go check that out. And I think it makes perfect sense to put a game mode in the game that rewards you for building up your characters the same way you would in an RPG. This is basically the raid or the dungeon that you want to build up to. This is going to be basically what you're working towards to beat this game mode. I'm hoping that's what's happening here. This is my theory crafting. And the reason I think this game mode's happening is, well, just listen to this clip.
At Injustice fan page, will there be a tower mode of some sort?
I'll use your answer. Yeah, there's going to be cool stuff, and we'll probably talk about that in a later stream, right? That's the right answer?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay.
This is what I'm talking about, man. Look at how happy he looks. I need more of him around. Please, I need more Sean Hemrick. Hear my call, NetherRealm. If you're not gonna give me Injustice 2 early, then just give me more Sean Hemrick. Hemrick? Pretty sure it's pronounced Hemrick.
What we just talked about, there's some really neat stuff coming, and we'll have a stream probably dedicated to that as well.
Yeah, it needs its own stream because it's a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, some of the tower stuff is some of the coolest single player stuff we've ever done.
Very excited. So the single player mode for this game is very robust. I'll say that.
I'm glad NetherRealm, regardless of whether they're actually working on the mode that I'm theorizing, which is basically something that really focuses on the gear system, rewarding you for playing it over and over again, really like an RPG dungeon or raid type thing. Even if it's not that, I'm glad NetherRealm is paying some attention to single player, because like I talked about in my previous gear video, there's going to be a lot of people playing this game who don't want to play it competitively because they're just DC fans and they just want to play Batman, or they just want to play, you know, Catwoman, or they just want to play The Flash, or they just want to play Green Arrow, and they just want to sit there and have fun, and this lets them play the game like an RPG, and I think that's absolutely fantastic, and I'm glad that they noticed that that should be a priority moving forward. And it's not like an RPG mode in a fighting game is actually completely unheard of. In fact, there's been one released fairly recently. Killer Instinct is a game that I think has done pretty well to kind of modernize fighting games. It tried really hard to give us a customization system that was worthwhile, unlike most fighting games. And in that aspect, it was quite modern. And then they added another game mode, which was again very, very modern in its attempt to hopefully try to bring in some players who wouldn't necessarily be interested in playing a fighting game, with its Shadow Lords mode. Now overall, I think the Shadow Lords mode failed in that aspect, because while mechanically it did pretty much everything it should have done, it was a challenge and you moved forward and you progressed and etc. and you paid attention to all your stats and things like that. But I feel like there were a lot of pointless mechanics in it. For example, when you went to go into an encounter, sometimes it would ask you, hey, you know, do you want to make this decision or this decision? And it didn't really, in my opinion, it didn't really help the flow of the gameplay at all, because you didn't really know what you were deciding between. You were given two different options, and basically you were deciding between two different story actions, but you didn't actually know the result of those actions before making them, which I suppose is kind of like an immersion tool, but I don't really think the objective should be immersion in this case. Also, the game mode itself wasn't particularly rewarding. where Injustice 2 has the ability to make it quite rewarding, with obviously the gear system, and every single player cares about the gear system on some level, whether it be customization or statistics. What we need to keep in mind when we make these types of game modes is that there's a lot of people who have no idea how to play a fighting game. There is going to be so many people who buy this game who do not know how to meter burn. There are going to be so many people who buy this game who do not know how to block. And I know some of you are thinking, well, they can learn that through the tutorial, or they can learn that through, YouTube videos or whatever. Unfortunately, not every player wants to do that. Players just want to be able to play the game. You don't need to sit there and play a tutorial to play, Batman Arkham Knight, or you don't need to sit there and play a tutorial to play Shadow of Mordor. Obviously, they do have, introductory levels in those games, but it's not really the same thing as, straight up tutorial. And in the Shadow Lords mode, obviously, you had, a normal, and then I think, an expert, and then, an absurd mode or whatever, that's the tier of difficulties. But there needs to be something below normal, okay? There needs to be something that the button mashers can do that is still rewarding for them. Obviously, that will make it easier for players like us to grind out gear, but that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm just trying to make sure that these players are able to enjoy the game. Obviously, it needs to be less rewarding than, say, the normal mode and the expert mode, or whatever you end up calling it, right? But they still need to feel like it was worth playing the game, even on the lowest difficulty. Another thing to me that was a little bit disappointing about the Shadow Lords game mode is I personally never finished it, but I know exactly how it ends. Where because we're sharing a universe with Injustice, and with the DC characters, we could have multiple different, versions of this quote-unquote Shadow Lords mode, or RPG mode, or whatever you want to call it, where one of them is we have to figure out how to defeat Superman, and you want to build up your team with maybe different types of gear to help beat Superman, or maybe one of them is you have to go up against Brainiac, or maybe one of them is you have to go up against Gorilla Grodd and his society members, maybe one of them is you have to take down the Insurgency, and maybe they could even do this single-player content evently. For example, I think I can find the clip from the 7 Things You Need to Know About Gear, where one of the team members actually mentioned single player straight after being asked a question about Premier skins.
You'll get a different shader, so you could change Supergirl into Power Girl, and it'll still have those stats and everything like that on it, and it's actually completely changing the character's look. And there may be a bunch of those. I don't know. I do know, and there is a bunch of those. Dang it, I'm not good at this.
So is it all original stuff, or maybe if you read the really vintage Batman stuff, will you be slipping in some of those really cool pieces?
We've already shown that there's the Red Sun Superman logo, so I'm sure you'll notice there's some nods to some other previous generations of these characters.
Amazing.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, will there be themed events? I mean, I don't want to bring in other games, but we have seen Overwatch do
Absolutely.
this, and people go crazy and they play loads to try and make sure they get all the Valentine skins or the Halloween ones, and you kind of did it with MKX as well.
Right, that's an ongoing thing with games in general. They want to make these holiday events, these limited time things to get people in and playing. And like you said, we did do that with Mortal Kombat X, and of course we're going to bring that into Injustice 2. The Injustice 2 single player is going to be pretty amazing.
Single player had nothing to do with the conversation, he just randomly blurted it out after talking about Premier skins. He also made it sound like there's going to be more Premier skins than just the 3 that we know about on the pre-order, which makes me think that this single player mode that we're talking about, whether it is the RPG mode that I'm theorizing about or whether it's something completely different, that is how we can unlock some more Premier skins outside of just the pre-order ones. So maybe when there's a big event like a CW Flash season finale or something, maybe they'll have, one of these missions where you have to verse the Flash at the end, and when you beat the Flash, you get his CW Flash skin, or because they have the Mother Box system in the game, because obviously they need to make money somehow, maybe what they'll do, whenever there's one of these big events or something, like a DC movie, or like I said, a season finale or something, they'll add in a CW box, right? And inside the box there can be, Premier skins, shaders, different pieces of gear, stuff like that, right? And when you complete this, mission, you get one of those boxes. Or maybe you get 5 of those boxes or whatever, right? Obviously, you couldn't keep spamming it because then they wouldn't be able to make money, but I don't really know. All of this is speculation at this point, but I think that would be a really good system for people who maybe can't afford to spend some money on some cosmetics, but would still maybe like the chance to get lucky enough on a random loot system like the Mother Box to pull that premier skin that he would otherwise have to pay for underneath a different system. It's kind of funny when people talk about these in-game Mother Boxes and people get really stressed out about it. They're like, oh no, microtransactions are the devil. Where it's like, well, you understand that microtransactions usually exist in this system where you can also unlock it in-game. That's the whole idea why it's called a microtransaction, is because it's something you can get in-game, but you can spend money to get it faster, right? That's almost literally the definition of a microtransaction. It's not quite, there's some variety in there, but people don't really seem to understand that that is probably, in theory, or at least it can be used as a better system than the one that we're used to, which is, here's your fighting game character, here's a skin we've brought out for it, you have to pay for that. There's no way to get it in-game at all. And they very well still may go with that in the future when they release DLC, but I personally think the system I've laid out in this video is superior because it's still going to make them money, and it will be great for people who can't necessarily afford it, or maybe the younger people in the audience who don't want to have to beg their mother to purchase the Flash skin for them or whatever, right? Anywho, thank you guys for watching this video. This is my theory on what could be the brand new game mode coming to Injustice 2. I think there's definitely a new game mode coming. I'm just not sure if it's going to be this one that I laid out in this video. I certainly hope it is, because this would be perfect in my opinion. And NetherRealm does seem pretty passionate about this new game mode, so I think it's going to be something far more complicated than we're all expecting, and I certainly hope it is as well. My next video is going to be about Premier Skins, so make sure you're subscribed, make sure you leave a like on this video, and I'll see you then.
Holy mackerel.